We've already talked about using table in Mathematica with what I call the first type of iterator. So for example, I could do table 100 times I, or I could have just written 100I, that would do the same thing. Then for I from 5 to 20 up by 2. And if I evaluate this by holding shift and hitting return, then what do I get? Let me make a new cell above it, and the way I do that is I move the mouse up on top of this expression until it turns horizontal, like that, and then I click there, and then that's going to get me a new cell. So what if I just had table I for I 522? Okay, what do I get then? Then I get I for I from 5, not going past 20, up by 2. So 5, 7, all the way up to 19. And here, in the first one that I did, I get 100 times I as my expression before the comma. And so what that does is instead of 579, it does 5 times 100, 7 times 100, 9 times 100. And this expression, it can really be anything. For example, I could even do f bracket I and evaluate it. Then I get f of 5, f of 7, f of 9, all the way up to f of 19. And if you ever want to get help about one of these commands like table, I can do question mark table. And this shows different possibilities for how to write it. And the one we were just doing was this one here. It says you do table, then some expression. So that's like a function or something that I probably want to plug I into. But I don't have to. For example, if I change this I to 13, okay, then I get a bunch of 13s. How many do I get? Well, I get 1 for 5, 1 for 7, 1 for 9, all the way up to 1 for 19. Okay, that's how many 13s I get. So the syntax is some expression followed by a comma, and then what I call the first iterator is something like this. It says, what's the name of the variable that we're working with? Where do we start the variable? What do we not go past? And what's the step size? So for example, what if I had 5 to negative 20 instead of 5 positive 20? Then I get an empty list here. Okay, if I were to ask what's the length of it? Okay, I get length of 0. What if I didn't want it to be length 0? Well, the way to do that would be to have some negative step size. For example, let's do negative pi for the step size. And how am I going to write pi? Well, remember, we always write with capital letters using built-in commands or built-in symbols in Mathematica. So I do capital Pi. Okay, then I get f of 5 minus pi, f of 5 minus 2 pi. And then they figured out what's the biggest coefficient it can have without going past negative 20. So that's the first type of iterator. What's the second type of iterator? Well, actually it's a lot easier. You just specify directly what the list is. So it's this one here, the second one from the bottom. So let me show you an example. Say I do table I for I, and then what am I going to put here? I'm going to put another list. So instead of giving some series of commands, I'm just going to give a specific list. So for example, I could do 2, 106, okay, inside of curly braces. So you might think this is going to start at 2, go up by 6, never go past 100, but the fact that it's inside these curly braces makes a huge difference. So what does it do? It gives me I for I equal to 2, then I equal to 100, then I equal to 6. If I did 5 plus I, okay, then it does 5 plus 2, 5 plus 100, 5 plus 6. So it might seem like this isn't very helpful, but let me give you an example where maybe it looks more helpful. I can also, instead of writing out the numbers directly, I can put a variable name that stands for a list. So for example, let me say my list equals table, let's do 10 times I for I from 1 to 10. And if I don't specify a step size, then the default step size is 1. So I gets equal to 1, 2, 3, up to 10. So then 10 times I, that gets equal to 10, 20, 30, all the way up to 100. And so what if I do this table 5 plus I for I in my list? Okay, so it's exact same as if I had written inside curly braces 10, 20, 30, all the way up to 100 here. And since it's already a list, I wouldn't put it inside of curly braces like this. Okay, maybe that would work, but that's not the way we're supposed to do it. And for more complicated things, that definitely wouldn't work. So if you're writing out the list explicitly, you put it in curly braces to show that it's a list. But if you have a variable name standing for a list, then you don't have to write out the curly braces. You can think of it like they're already here and here.